And
Hi
then,
guys.
hey
Hi.
Vipin, I'm going to set you as co-host and Nima as co-host.
So I think we can start with Jamil today. So we have a proposal that can we rename the group or how Jamil can help us in organizing better. So Jamil, we have some doubts regarding devices. So if you can tell us better that what kind of devices we are talking about. Is it related to networking, telco, or IoT only? Or first, please, if you can introduce yourself with everyone, that will be really
Yeah, I
interesting.
think maybe introductions all the way around would be helpful. Yeah, so Jamil can learn who's in the group right now.
Mm-hmm. So I can start with mine. Hi Jamal, my name is Vipin, and I am assistant professor in University of Delhi and also chair in Hyperledger Telecom Sig. Nima, you want to go next?
Yeah. Hi, Jamal. I'm Nima. I'm also an assistant professor. I'm in Ireland. Well, I'm based in Ireland, usually uh, University of College Dublin. And yeah, so I work around telecom, optical networks, wireless networks, and mainly the application of blockchain to these areas. Yeah, and right now I'm in Beijing if you're around.
Got it. Nice to meet you both. My name is Jamil. I'm based in New York City. I do travel quite a bit to Asia. Um, and I run a company called Siphon. I also run a very large blockchain community in New York City called Blockchain NYC, which is about 40,000 people here. And I've just started running Hyperledger NYC. So we've been doing, so the company I run, we started with events and education in 2017, 2018, and then started getting into services, software development services. And now we're exploring products, building products both on the blockchain side and AI side. And one of our customers is actually Vodafone. We've been building some things for them and kind of advising them this year. They're one of the reasons behind my involvement with the SIG.
That's great.
Yeah.
And before we get into those details, maybe we can just finish the introductions for the others. I don't know, Paz, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, we are doing something which is actually a retail CBDC system based on blockchain, and we were encouraged to look into the Hyperledger by IBM Israel, although we are using something which more like the Bitcoin system, because we need a real connection with a token and not some hybrid system which is based on account like the Hyperledger. But we're looking into the ways that Hyperledger is trying to be a token based or or UTXC based, and that's why we're looking into this area. I myself has got something like 35 years of experience in in the telecom area, especially on fiber optics related stuff. And I also been part of the CCITT, ETSI, and other committees and OIF.
That's great. And you probably already know this, but there's a ton of resources around CBDCs in the community. In fact, IBM just did a workshop last week. I just put a link to that recording on our YouTube channel in the chat if you want to check that out. But thanks for your introduction. Dinkar, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, so hey guys, my name is Dinkar and I'm basically a Hyperledger mentee right now. I'm working with exploring the different use cases of decentralized identity along with blockchain in the telecom sector. So yeah, yeah, just exploring different things and yeah.
That's great. Brett, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name is Brett Carpenter. I'm a telecommunications startup situated on the campuses of Oakland University and the Shotwell Gustafson Pavilion. I am an IBM partner, and my focus is enterprise asset management with a blockchain credentialing to gain access to the asset and to the information of the assets. Thank you.
Great. Yeah, thanks for your introduction. And Ramkumar, thanks for joining. We were just doing some introductions. If you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I've joined a couple of times earlier last week, but last year, but I'm pretty irregular, but I'm trying to uh, uh, continue in the community call. So basically, I'm based out of Bangalore, India, primarily in telecommunication domain. Currently, I'm doing 6G research in Samsung. So looking forward to have good discussions on how we can use Hyperledger in telecom.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining. With that, yeah, maybe to go back to Vipin's question, Jamil, do you want to share more about kind of your work with devices and your vision of how you want to collaborate with community members around that?
Sure. So I don't have a vision. It's not that concrete. This is really coming more from Vodafone. And so in some sense, I'm maybe a conduit to Vodafone, at least with David Palmer, who is my contact person there, one of the contact persons there. So the context is that Vodafone has spun out another entity called Pairpoint, which is funded by a Japanese VC. I believe the funding is around 20 million. This is public information. And what they're building is they're going to take their telecom infrastructure, their network, and they want to allow devices to start to connect onto their network. Now, obviously, we all know Vodafone for mobile, but they're looking beyond that, right? They're looking at EV car, charging EV chargers, charging stations for electrical cars, component tracking, a couple other things, right? And what they want to be is kind of the infrastructure, or I would say the fabric of the kind of the mesh that allows devices to interconnect, and then maybe possibly settle transactions through some DLT or blockchain. We built a phase 1 of that March, April this year, a proof of concept. Pretty rapidly demonstrated how something like that could occur on a public chain. But the sentiment is to actually move towards a private chain. So we're exploring to use Besu at this point. And so we will move into like a phase 2 to start to build out more pieces of this. We will integrate AI, so allowing the customer to interact using English or any other human language and to generate smart contracts. For example, we'll like pre-tune or fine-tune or prime up ChatGPT with templates of smart contracts. And then the customer can then create derivatives of those smart contracts. And then maybe potentially use ChatGPT to generate scripts to deploy those smart contracts onto Besu and so on and so forth, and really create this self-provisioning tool such that customers can start to deploy these smart contracts and then get onto this platform that Pairpoint wants to build. So even though Vodafone is a telecom, Pairpoint is not a telecom. All right, so they are, but we will use the Vodafone name because it's more known. So you can think of Pairpoint as a spin out. Pairpoint is not a telecom. They're going to use the Vodafone infrastructure, but they themselves are not a telecom startup. They are more this infrastructure and devices. And so when we say devices, we're specifically talking about IoT in the context of, most likely anything that would hook into their telecom infrastructure, and specifically around IoT devices settling transactions in mostly in an autonomous manner. So this is their vision. It's not my vision. We're supporting and we help them craft some of that vision. And part of their strategy, and as a result, our strategy was to join a SIG and obviously get closer to Hyperledger. And just as a background, I've been involved with Hyperledger since 2017. And we have customers where we've delivered some Fabric things, nothing on Besu, but we are as a business shifting more towards Besu. So I would say that that's the context. There is nervousness around joining a telecom SIG because they may feel like they may feel, and this is not necessarily a rational idea, like some senior leaders might feel that this is, oh, well, we're interacting with competitors. And so the idea was to maybe dilute a little bit the name of the SIG. So originally we were thinking to revive the manufacturing SIG. That was the initial idea. There's a manufacturing SIG that is dormant right now. And based on our conversations with Daniela Barbosa, the initial idea was to revive that SIG. And then my conversation with David Boswell was that maybe we not revive it and do the hard work of like bringing it into existence and bringing other partners into that, which was clearly a lot of hard work, was to maybe merge our interest into an existing and operating SIG. And so I said, at that point, I went back to Vodafone. They yeah, that sounds great. But then there was this, are we going to be interacting with our competitors and things like that? We're not really a telecom. So they were leaning more towards manufacturing. I said, what about devices and things like that? And there was kind of a warmer reception to that. So nothing's set in stone. And I wouldn't say this is a hard proposal. It's more of like, this is really maybe a way to kind of finagle and get Vodafone better involved.
Yeah, thanks for that background. And just
Yeah.
to keep everybody in the loop about kind of my thoughts on this in terms of community building, I think when we have situations where there are people who have similar interests, we want to, facilitate collaboration instead of having, if we kind of spun up a devices SIG that had overlap with what the Telecom SIG is doing, because it has done, device related things in the past. Many of the presentations we've done seem to have, a component about connected devices. And then some of the papers we've done have been, about connected devices as well. So I think it would just be, a stronger group to bring these efforts together versus having them kind of separate, but side by side, but overlapping. So, but this was encouraged Jamil to come today to talk about this with the group to get everybody else's thoughts on this. I'm curious to hear what people think.
So if it
Yeah,
is
thanks, Jamil.
IoT devices, sorry, yeah, please continue.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So yeah, I just sent a link on the chat, Jamil. I think this is the PowerPoint kind of press release kind of a
Yes.
thing.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, so like the whole idea is really around in-car payments, right? And there's some sort of a wallet system in place for every individual car, and that's oriented around the SIM card technology that is going to enable this kind of a profile for, let's say, every vehicle that is going to be able to, I don't know, drive through kind of food payments and gas charging and electrical kind of charging fees and so on. Yeah, I mean, broadly speaking, this would be an IoT use case. Like, if we look at a vehicle as an IoT kind of a entity, right? Now, the SIM card stuff are quite relevant to us, and we did have some identity kind of use cases here, and we have a white paper on it as well. which is essentially kind of about how you manage identity over Hyperledger products. In terms of, so I understand that you're trying to kind of get a point to convince Vodafone people, let's say, to not to worry about competitors in such a SIG. Just I mean, the whole point of this SIG is to bring people together from different sectors and also competitors to work with each other, right? That's the whole spirit of open source. So I wouldn't really be so keen on trying to change the name of the SIG so it appeals better to the management of a company who wants to join the SIG. It just doesn't make sense. Like it doesn't really align well with open source objectives, really. Yeah, and in terms of I don't know what kind of concerns a company like Vodafone might have participating in an open source community. I mean, the first point is that if you're contributing to an open source community, you're already trying to keep some of you're willing to keep some of your technology open, right? So yeah, that's just my thought on the whole thing. Yeah, what do you think, Vipin?
So I think devices, of course, IoT, and we can include other devices like radios, which is important for telecom as well. So, but that's a use case, right? Means what we are adding in radio as such in terms of blockchain, I don't know. Means of course with IoT or sensors, we already have use cases that we already presented in the SIG. But we have to specifically, in my opinion, if we can add network devices or what kind of or IoT devices, that would be really helpful. Otherwise, device is very vague, right? So devices can be anything. So or even communication can be from satellite or something. Means either it's radio or satellite or what kind of devices we are using. So if we can specify, that's really helpful. Uh,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah. I mean,
I
so
think it's quite specific. This is
yeah.
vehicles, right?
Well,
So
so the news, that PR, that press release is not the full story, right? There's other use cases, and we know internally what's happening, you know, and the appearance from the outside is not necessarily a full reflection of what's occurring inside. And I think I don't want, I'm not coming here to say we should, you know, who's this guy coming here to say we should change our names? You know, that I don't want to come in from that perspective. Like, you know, like I don't have that kind of audacity to say, hey, change the name. And I don't think it's the idea that we need to bend to a company. And I agree with the statement that it's not the open source ethos, right? And I don't think that's the point. The point was that there's a history here. We've kind of pivoted, and some of that pivoting is saying, where do we find the right home, right? Even manufacturing may not have been the right thing, but the only reason we would have went with manufacturing, because Vodafone is not a manufacturer, was to revive what has already existed, and build off of momentum that already exists, even though that SIG is pretty much archived, it's not active anymore, was to take advantage of that momentum. So I wouldn't look at it as bending towards any company. I don't think it's just more of a culmination of a bunch of different conversations and, you know, shifting around to find the right home and the right fit. My only concern is that Vodafone will become a Hyperledger member, from my understanding, is that the commitment to deliver content in a telecom SIG the appetite might not be there. And I did mention to David that maybe we can work on an AI related paper, AI with Besu, or whatever we're doing with Vodafone might become something that we could publish under a SIG.
Yeah.
But you know, I think everything is open for discussion. I don't have the audacity to make a formal proposal to change a name while just showing up the SIG for the first time, right? That's not the point here. The point here is like, this is what's happening. and I'm trying to get Vodafone in, and they're already interested in coming in. It's not just me. I'm not the broker. They're interested, and I'm trying to make that path. They're relying on me to make that path clear. The person who's the point on this is he's not here just because he's incredibly busy, and we're all incredibly busy, but he typically doesn't show up for meetings like this. He's out at conferences, and he's more of like a in-person wheeler dealer type of person. So he's asking me to see how do we fit in? Where does it make sense? He initially wanted to go down the manufacturing route, and I said, well, are you guys manufacturing anything? He said no. So I think it's more of like how, so we could start from scratch. It's like, okay, we have a company called Vodafone. They have a spinoff called PairPoint, which does IoT devices. This will include, for example, you can just Google this as well. Vodafone is doing some work with Heathrow for tracking these containers that move around through Heathrow, luggage containers, right? And that's, there's sensor devices on the temperature sensors, GPS sensors, and all that. That's not an electrical car use case.
Yeah.
So where do we take this kind of company that's doing this kind of work? And I could ask, what SIG should it go into? Right. And I don't think there's a clear, exact clear bucket. Hence, the next idea was, let's just start a devices SIG. Just start a devices SIG. Right. And then I think we had some pushback from Hyperledger and saying, hey, maybe not start a new SIG, but merge. And that's where I would say the idea of adding the word devices came from.
Yeah, and I can give more context. I mean, it was something I encouraged as well. And again, Nima, I agree with Nima and Vipin, and I think the reasons for any of this, matter. For me, I think the reason of a name change is really to recognize what the group has done and really to get more exposure and broaden the appeal. Like if I look back at some of what, the group has done recently, right? We had a robotics presentation, right? I mean, to me, that's not necessarily just about telecom. That was about, a device that's, a connected device, right? So for me, it was recognition of the scope of the group, and really, if we can expand the name of the group, maybe that would help, broaden the appeal, again, to let more people know that more interesting things are happening here. Again, just to recognize what the group has already done. We already had the IoT paper, a number of IoT, presentations, that robotics presentation. Is there a way to recognize the interests of the group? And again, I think just from a community building perspective, if there was kind of a separate devices SIG that spun up, we would just end up competing with each other. We wouldn't have a critical mass because some group of people would be over there who are interested in that topic. Some would be here. So how do we bring these people, bring everybody interested in this space together? So that was my thought too, to encourage the idea of maybe recognizing this larger group of, overlapping interests.
Yeah, thanks,
And
David. No, I understand that, and I understand this wasn't just one person kind of an idea, but we did have this mechanism in place for this back in 2019, right? So we had our ICS subgroup, we had IoT subgroup, we had SLA subgroup. They did start kind of back in the day. We had a large number of people attending, so we each subgroup, if you remember, they had their own separate calls. So they were all
because we did have enough. Yeah, there was a critical mass. Yeah.
So we did have all these subgroups, and one paper came out of the IoT one a couple of things came out from the SLA one. So yeah, I mean, again, I'm not very against the whole idea of merging the group or but trying to make it broader and broader, it just defies the purpose, right? So I'm not sure devices would actually mean anything in this context as a
maybe it goes to what Vipin said. Maybe we just need to be more precise. Maybe it's not about devices. Maybe it's about telecom and IoT, or telecom and connected devices. Maybe the being more precise. And again, I'm not trying to broaden the scope of the group, just trying to recognize the kind of what the group has already been, exploring.
Yeah, yeah. No, look, that makes sense. It's just again with the motivation, right? I mean, obviously we would like for more people, especially companies with very relevant kind of ideas to come in. But again, we are going to have, I don't think if it would really make sense to remove the name Telecom in general, because this is what we are known for, and this is the
Sure.
kind of the main goal, right?
I was thinking more
And
adding
if you
to, not
add
removing.
Telecom and IoT, it's still the same problem is going to be there still. So Vodafone might not like the word telecom is still being there. So I don't know if that's all. So let's say we call this telecom and IoT, Jamil. Would that solve the problem with Vodafone, or do you think that will still be a
Yeah.
concern?
I don't think it's a problem. It's not a problem. I think it's a question of like where does this entity sit? And so I mean, I don't want to get too hung up on the terminology, because I think there's a lot of flexibility on the Vodafone side. I can go back and to have a discussion with them, and they might come back and say, well, maybe we should fit in the supply chain trade finance, because right now we're actually working on a trade finance use case for a pair point, right? So I wouldn't get too hung up on that, and I didn't know that this call would be about the naming of the SIG. So I didn't really get an update from them about this topic. So I can speak to them, see what they feel. I think the core question is like, where should they go and which SIG should they get into? And then we do want to take an active role in contributing, right? And so like writing this paper and things like that. So I think that's where they're looking at it from, like, where do we fit into this? Is it pure telecom? So then we're just talking to other telecoms. They already do that, right? And what's the benefit for that?
Yeah, and I agree.
Yeah.
This isn't
We can leave
necessarily only about the name, but yeah, hearing what kind of contributions you want to make would be useful too. Is that the sort of thing this group is interested in?
Yeah, we can leave the naming issue for later on once you
Yeah.
have more conversations with your partners. I mean, looking at, like, I just sent the list of all the SIGs there. I'm sure you've seen them before. From what way you were describing, I'd say your case would fit into finance. It would fit into identity because you're talking about SIM cards. It would fit into telecom. And I don't think if you actually join one SIG, it stops you from collaborating with other SIGs. We've had in the past kind of cross collaboration between SIGs. There's nothing stopping us from doing that. So if for political reasons you might have to join another SIG officially, again, that won't stop us from working together, right? Yeah, just for that to be clear.
Yeah, I think maybe the main benefit of this call from my side in terms of what I can share with you guys is that the context of what Vodafone's intent is and what's happening there, and how they want to be involved. I don't want to speak fully on their behalf. I'm not necessarily their representative, but they've asked me to take on this role to some degree. Daniel Palmer put me in touch with Daniela Barbosa, who I actually knew already before, and that's where the conversation started. I think this is about 4 or 5 weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. So I think the best thing I could do here is tell you this is the context, and this is, they looking to partner with Hyperledger Foundation and become a member. Last thing David Palmer told me was that he's putting in the paperwork to start the process to become a member, and he wants to be involved he wants Vodafone to be involved in a SIG. We just couldn't figure out what SIG, because there's everything overlaps with everything these days, right? Everything is like, so I think it's hard to find that fit.
Okay, so I think once you come back with discussions with Vodafone, we can chat over email, or we can share updates on the SIG mailing list as well, and then we can decide stuff.
Yeah, so for now we can get into the technical stuff. Like, I do have some questions here, which will kind of help us to understand the use case better, right? So this is like, I mean, at least the information we have now based on the news kind of, I found the news letter or the press release. The whole thing seems to be around payments using a SIM card on a vehicle, right? Would you be able to kind of clarify essentially what makes the difference between a vehicle that has a SIM card on it and wants to make a payment, and a mobile phone or smartphone essentially that has a SIM card and does a payment? Like, being in China for a while now, it's amazing how they've essentially gotten rid of cards, bank accounts, all of that. It's just on the phone. It's just on your wallet. You just pay everything with a QR code, right? So yeah. Now, what is the kind of the main technical challenge when it comes to bringing that SIM card into a vehicle rather than a smartphone?
So, at the architectural level, with the smartphone, it's B2C, and then with the vehicle, it's B2B to C. So, their customer is some enterprise, and the enterprise controls, for example, the chargers. And so the enterprise would be somebody that would deploy a service on this platform, which is currently called DAB, DAB, or Digital Asset Broker. And so they're shifting from this B2C model to this B2B to C model. That's one difference. I think, and so they don't necessarily know the end customer. Where with the mobile use case, they know who the end customer is. In this case, they might not know. Of course, their customer, the enterprise, does know. And what they're looking to do is leverage blockchain. What they like, the long-term vision, and we don't know if this will be able to get there, is that if you own a mobile phone and you sell it to somebody, you sell the phone, you can transfer the SIM through a blockchain, right? So you go in and using a blockchain, well, of course, you might not even know that you're using blockchain. You reassign the ownership of that SIM to somebody else. And so what we did in our first phase of the POC, which was in April this year, was we made devices, and this term we call it's a broader term. It could be the charger, it could be a car. We made them NFTs, and we made organizations. So the organizations possessed a pool of NFTs. So you can imagine a car rental company has a pool of cars, and these cars, let's say in the US, we have some car rental called Hertz. And so Hertz rents out a car, but Hertz is the customer to Vodafone. And the person that's renting the car, it's an electrical car, goes around and charges the car. Hertz, and the transaction settles immediately, and that settlement process is done through Vodafone's infrastructure, or this DAB infrastructure. So I would say there's additional layers, and then also I would say they're adding other use cases that might expand beyond just devices as well. Like last conversation was like, how do we make a bill of lading into an NFT, right? So it's pretty, the scope is kind of, it doesn't fit well with any specific SIG. And so, but hopefully that answers your question. I mean, there may be additional details, some of that I can't share. But at the high level, that's the difference.
Yeah, just a quick follow-up question. Sorry, Brett, I see you've raised your hand there, but so just because at least I'm not familiar with the finance terms, B2B to C, is that how's that different from B2C, as in, is this the manufacturer somehow tied into the wallet, like the car manufacturer?
Yeah, it's a B2B2C is my business. I have a business, I have a service, and my customers are enterprises that have retail customers. Right.
So here the vehicles that you're considering here are essentially, say, rental vehicles. So it's a kind of a
yeah, it could be in these initial use cases, it's vehicle the chargers. It's not the vehicles themselves, it's the chargers that are owned by organizations. So it's the
Okay.
EV charger, not necessarily the car.
So essentially we need three partners to have the B2B2C, right? So one is the owner of the chargers, one is the owner of the vehicle who has the SIM card and identity of the SIM card, and
Yeah.
the wallet is tied with that person. And then who's the
Yeah.
third B?
There's
Who's the second B?
there's two B's and one C. B to B to C.
Yeah, who's the second B?
So let's say Vodafone is the first B. The second B is whoever owns 1,000 electrical chargers. Let's say
Okay.
in a state or some city, right? And then the C could also be a business, but we're assuming, let's say it's retail. It's somebody driving an electric car, or it could be another business. That B2B is conceptual. It could be B2B to B2B to C, right? So,
Yeah.
but
So the idea, I guess, here is somewhat also related to smart grids and individual housing estates owning a number of electrical chargers, and having, let's say, an independent energy grid that feeds into using whatever renewable energy kind of resources they have, feeding into this electrical charger. Is that kind of the idea there, or is it just
yeah.
as simple as someone renting a number of electrical chargers and trying to make a business out of it?
No, typically the person that owns the charger, they might own it. So somebody owns a charger, they need to connect into some service that allows somebody to come to a car to come to that charger, charge, and there'll be a settlement on the transaction. So there's services that do that right now, right? There's companies that do that right now. What Vodafone is their position is that they have this massive infrastructure for communication that they can extend it into IoT devices. Specifically, right now, what's been released publicly is EV charging, right? But they're looking well beyond that. They're looking at other things, and a lot of this is very exploratory. This is not like, hey, we have a clear, exact picture of what we're going to build, and we're going to build it. There is some, I would say, some degree of uncertainty. So it's Vodafone. Somebody coming to Vodafone saying, I've got 1,000 EV chargers, whether I own it or rent it, how I'm getting my electricity is irrelevant. I have 1,000 of these, and a car comes in that's hooked into Vodafone, electrical car comes in that's hooked into this DAB infrastructure, charges. I want the settlement to happen automatically. I want the charging to happen automatically. So who owns these 1,000 electrical chargers, EV chargers, will need to potentially deploy smart contracts on their own, or use templates that we might provide and deploy that. Or if they have some custom logic to take the templates, modify it, and then deploy, kind of like an Open Zeppelin scenario. That's the use case that we're looking at right now, that I would say that's tied to what you see in the press release.
Okay, yeah. Thanks, Jamil. Thanks. Yeah, that
Sure.
explains well.
You see, I dropped another link for another news piece where they're tracking something at Heathrow, and they're looking at Polkadot there as well. But like we know, there's external things occurring that looks from the news you see, And anybody that's been in this business for some time knows that that's not necessarily in sync with what's happening on the ground. And so I can tell you that Vodafone right now, the use cases are going to grow. They're just looking to build this kind of base infrastructure. You could say they're looking to become kind of like a cloud provider of some set of business services on top of blockchain. And it heavily involves IoT, but it's not exclusive IoT. It's not, and we can't necessarily call it telecom either. You know, it includes trade finance use cases, and it includes financial use cases, right? You know, settlement of a trade from, let's say, from a letter of credit and shipping, all that. They're looking at that as well. So is that pure telecom? I don't know. So should I somebody has their hands up. Should I just go ahead and
Yeah, Brett, go ahead.
Yeah.
So in the use case, I'm hearing that cell phones or tablets and identity management. I think what I'm hearing is that there's a little bit of the fuzzy math with who would do the credentialing. Like for instance, Hertz, would they do the credentialing? Would it be? And so, first of all, can you speak to that with regards to credentialing authorizing the credentialing? And then secondly, do you have any, I guess you want to say, like real hard ideas of how you're going to structure the blockchain? Are you going to do it through Hyperledger, Fabric, or Indy, or Bisu, or Ethereum? Thank you.
Yep. So on the credentialing side, Vodafone's doing some work there. I'm not fully privy to that yet. Our next phase of our next POC that we will build will have some VC credentialing in there. To what extent, we don't know today. My intent is to use all of the Hyperledger suite when it comes to credentialing. There is a need for interop, so we want to look at Cacti for that, and we're heavily leaning towards Besu. And the architecture looks like, so for the first phase, we built something on public Ethereum testnet, Sepolia testnet. We built it. You can see some of the smart contracts there. I can share with you guys later if you like. This is about 6 months ago. Now it's the response that came back was that we need to have a permissioned ledger for audit reasons and security reasons. And we're looking at specifically at Besu and Firefly. So I have Firefly services on top of Besu backend. In terms of what the nodes look like, does a customer own a node? Does Vodafone run all the nodes? All that, we don't know right now. What it looks like is maybe a customer will run a node and Vodafone will run a node, and there will possibly be an option for a customer to use a public chain, and therefore the Besu will need to interrupt into the public mainnet. That could be Polygon, it could be the main Ethereum network. I still think that we don't have a firm picture on that, and that's what my job is, like, to figure that piece out and help Vodafone with that, because the Pearpoint team, the chief, so David Palmer is the chief product officer there, has basically put his trust in me to help craft this vision. And my approach is like, I need to get the details in terms of what needs to get built, what does it need to do. And so we're kind of in the early stages of that, and figuring that out. Now they do already have something called DAB. It runs on Corda block, on the Corda DLT. I wrote a book for O'Reilly on Corda a couple years ago called Mastering Corda. but Vodafone wants to possibly move away from Corda. So for us, the next fit would most likely be Besu.
Okay, so I think we can start with subgroup if you want, and then we can explore to add it in a main thing or not. If you're okay, or we can start with the main stuff once you come up with the discussions with Vodafone. Is it fine?
I didn't understand the suggestion. Are you saying like the IoT would be a subgroup?
Yeah, or devices can be a subgroup.
Yeah.
Initial days, let's say for 1 month or something, and then we can explore it. For example, in that subgroup, we can suggest some name changes or something, and then we can merge it in the main one as well.
Yeah, I like that approach. Yeah. Let me go back to Vodafone, and they're I really want them to be very comfortable and feeling, with the foundation, and it'll make everybody's work easier. So, but I think that's a reasonable approach.
Okay, that's good. So I think we have Dinkar with us as well. So let's move to the next agenda. Dinkar, could you please quickly give us a brief that what you're working on so that everyone know?
Yeah, sure. Let me share my screen once.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I have already introduced myself, and basically I was just working on trying to identify different use cases in the telecom sector of blockchain and decentralized identity. And we came up with this whole architecture where we can have these different use cases, right? So I think I have already presented this in one of the earlier telecom SIG meets, but yeah, we also this time has the code implemented for all of this architecture. So maybe I will just go side by side. So initially we just have a user, right? And the first use case can be SSO. So let's say you go to a third party vendor site, and the first thing you have to do is create an account. The problem with that is you have to give the email as well as set up a password. Over a particular period of time, you have a lot of different passwords, and it's not the best approach to maintain security, right? So then there's this concept of SSO, like where you click sign with Google, right? But the problem with that approach is that the information is all of your information is with Google. So you don't have control over the information. We don't know what is stopping Google from passing off your information to other third-party vendors free of cost, right? And maybe their database is hacked, stuff like this. So yeah, then now we can have this concept of SSO with DID. So now you have the DID, you own the private key of the DID, and the public key is on the public ledger, right? And then you can just connect the third-party side with this just one button, right? The connect wallet. And yeah, initially you need to have an account. So the account can be on your mobile phone or maybe a web wallet, right? So right now we are just for the POC purpose implemented it as a web wallet. So if I log in into the account, right? I already have created an account, but we can basically go in the sign up thing and just create an account. That's that simple. Okay. Okay. Yeah, so if my credentials are right, I will be redirected back after my login is successful, and then I can see these services, right? So these different services which we will provide apart from SSO using this architecture. So yeah, I have to connect my MetaMask to this. Yep. Okay. So the first thing was the SSO where the user submits the DID instead of username and password. And we also try to reduce the OTP mechanism here, right? So whenever you have to verify that you own the email, right? The very email verification or the phone verification. So yeah, we can also have the burden less on that architecture. The second thing is after the second use case can be let's say you go to buy a device, right? Every device contains an IMI number. So this IMI number is used by it's just issued by GSMA, and it is maintained by these guys. And your devices can be blocked or unblocked based on this IMI number. But the problem with this approach is that GSMA has a centralized database. So all of the other telecom operators which use this IMI, they have to copy the database of GSMA and then just proceed with that. Yeah, this process is just time consuming and a lot more costlier. So now we will just have we can just have a simple decentralized database, and we can have a smart contract deployed there. And then all of these checking of like whether a device IMNI number is whitelisted or blacklisted, we can check it from a single application, right? So now if I just click this request device button, right, it is registering a device for me with the IMN number against my DID. So the use case of DID is here. Let's say you want to tell that your device has been stolen, but how do you do that? So you basically call the authorities and tell them your device is stolen, but they also need proof, right? You own a device. So how you do that? You just give the billing details, like the bill which you got when you bought the device, the FIRs, like um you give to the police, right? But that is like again a time consuming process. So now you can just prove that you own the DID against this IMI number, and then you can just change the status instead of going through all of this pain, right? So initially we can verify this IMI status. So yeah, basically this is the DID against which this IMI status has been published to the ledger. And if I submit it, it will tell me that the device is whitelisted right now. So it's not blocked. But if we want to change the status of this, we can just come here, do this, and change it to blacklist. Yeah, and just it is just updating the ledger. And yeah, give it a second. Yeah,
And
so the
by the way,
status is up.
Dinkar, if you can tell what all Hyperledger projects you use, for example, in
Yeah,
the
I was just going to show that. Sorry, yeah. Okay, so let me just complete this flow and I will tell them, right? Yeah. Okay, so now if I just repeat and enter it, now it says blacklisted, right? And all of this is stored in this IMI DLT. So basically this is implemented on Ethereum testnet, that is the Sophia one. Give me a second. So yeah, we have this Sepolia network, and all of the smart contracts have been deployed there. And for the DID purposes, we ran Hyperledger Indy, and we have a local node running for us where all of these DIDs which are created for this user, so the one which we logged in with, are stored. And yeah, like basically we are using these. And now, yeah, after you have this, right, these were three use cases of this. And then there's another use case. So let's say you want to get a SIM card issued from the telecom authority. You just go there and ask for a SIM card. But now you are also going to get you can also get a credential against that particular SIM card, so that you can just verify that credential anytime you want without revealing much of the information by using selective disclosure. So if I go to, yeah, so in my wallet, I already do have a credential, right? So when you click this button, when you click this one, you get a credential issued to you and with the number and the operator. So in this example, we have Vodafone, but yeah. So, and now if you click this verify operator, right, it will automatically go to your wallet and then try to see if you have this credential, right? If you don't, it will tell you that it's invalid. If you have, it will just, yeah, it's just verified, right? So this is another use case where you can also get yourself verified regarding other different details by getting credential issued. But one of the use case can be the phone number, right? And then there's this last use case which we think of as we can have CDRs. So basically, in terms of international callings, all of these different telecom operators have these CDRs stored because they share the hardware architecture. And so now these CDRs can be linked to the user's DID. So let's say we can link their CDRs, personal CDRs, to this DID and store on a Hyperledger chain. And then using that Hyperledger chain, these telecom operators can then calculate the total bill which these guys have to pay to each other. This process is basically very time consuming and costly. Again, the reason is initially what these guys do is they take the CDs and store it at their level, right? And then when there's this time of billing, they just compare the CDs. And if there's like just one CD which is missing or different, right, then it's a lot of hassle to figure out why. And there are always third parties involved while calculating this bill. But now with the help of smart contracts, we can just do it without the issue of trust, right? So these guys can just have a private smart contract which only these can issue, not issue, but access. And then yeah, and so for right now we were not able to show that in this example, but we already have the smart contract written. So yeah, and yeah, maybe, basically we can again deploy the smart contract to the Ethereum testnet. And yeah, I guess this was the whole architecture and the implementation for that. If you guys have any doubts, just let me know. Yeah.
And for the interoperability, we can use Hyperledger with Ethereum as well. So for the
Mhm.
CDRs, that's what we have planned for BSU. So it's very interoperable between Indy and BSU and Ethereum. So yeah. So if any questions or suggestions.
I
If
just
no,
shared one example of
yeah.
a company called Rome Network. So the basic idea is to bypass the SIM card. So idea is very, I mean, little bit similar to this, but not exactly the same. So as you know, the SIM card is primarily the eSIMs are primarily tied up with GSMA. So even if you deploy a private network, you can't install your own SIM card. So you need GSMA certificate to install it, right? So what these guys have done it, they have used the MetaMask wallet. And if you see that YouTube video, so he's just connected to a network without any SIM card and without any roaming agreement. I mean, private network without any roaming agreement. And once he pays with the wallet, so he gets admitted to the network. So that is the demo that Rome has.
And this is related to SIM, right? Or what? Like for the CDRs to manage CDRs?
So there, the main use case was to avoid the SIM card. How can we bypass? So just like Wi-Fi, right? So Wi-Fi today, I don't need any SIM card. I just click an SSID and join, right? So in future, probably we might have a system where cellular system also where I don't need a roaming agreement or even a SIM card. I'll just go and select a network and use my wallet and pay and start using it.
Mm-hmm. Sure, we will look into this and see if it is useful. We can add. And the idea
Yeah,
here is to
mhm.
yeah, please.
Yeah, I was just having one question. So, in this case, right? So usually how SIM cards work is they provide us this network facility, right? They just connect to the nearest tower and then just connect us over it, right? But in this wallet idea, right? In this MetaMask wallet idea, I'm not sure how they are achieving that part, because firstly you need an identifier for each individual that we can do with the, let's say, MetaMask Ethereum address. But then there's this problem of interconnectivity, right? So in cases of Wi-Fi, you just use routers and then the routers uses wires, right? In cases of eSIM or SIMs, they use these towers. So yeah, I'm not sure like what, yeah, maybe this. Mhm.
The main idea is that eSIM currently requires the GSMA certificate. So currently the SIM card, that normal physical SIM, right? So you can just buy a white label SIM card and then write your own IMC, write your own MCC, MNC, and connect to your own G-Node B that you might have in the lab. But eSIM doesn't work like that. So you still need a GSMA approved third-party app to install that eSIM. So this idea
Mhm.
was to this generic idea is to remove that dependency also. So currently, none of the commercial phones will support this. So I'm not sure how he has done it, but he has done it.
Yeah, I will surely take a look at that. Yeah, thanks.
And that's what I think in the one of the white paper we showed that how we can use EMEDB, right? Can we make whole EMEDB kind of concepts as a more decentralized? So that's what we tried to implement here. So yeah.
Can you guys share this paper? Or I'm just.
So we are releasing code as well as whole structure in the reports as well.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
Mhm. Cool. I think time is also over. So thanks, guys. Thanks for joining. Thanks, everyone. Let's connect the next call.
Right,
Bye.
thank you.
Great. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.